Welcome to r/MaliciousCompliance, where an Uber driver obliges a woman's request for a free ride by taking her to the Mexican border. Our first Reddit post is from Vasco_. In 2017, I signed for my web shop a contract with our national mail carrier to deliver my parcels. The more parcels, the better rate you get. In my league, they had a 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 parcel target contract. I went with the 2,000 one. At the end of year one, there would be an evaluation, and they said they would be very flexible and reasonable because their priority is to help grow my business. I actually had that in writing. For any parcel I had sent through them beyond the 2K target, I'd get a 50% refund of the difference between the 2K and the 5K rate. On the other hand, for each parcel I was short at the end of the year of the 2K target, they would charge me double the difference between the 2K and the 5K rate, on top of a flat rate penalty fee. The end of year one of my contract is 2 weeks away, and I'm sitting at 1,850 parcels. Thinking that 92.5% of my target is pretty good for year one, I gave them a call to talk about the extra charges and the penalty, and see if I could get the 5K rate for the next year, as I was seeing/expecting strong growth. In the end, it was their priority to help grow my business, and they were very flexible and reasonable. No, sir! They were dead set on me paying for the penalty, charging me extra for the 150 parcels, and on top of that, they would set me back to the more expensive 1K target rate for the next year. Tried to escalate it, but to no avail. So much for helping me grow my business and being very flexible and reasonable. In comes malicious compliance. I did the math, and paying the penalty plus extra charges was nearly double of what it would cost me to reach my target, if I would just pay for the extra 150 parcels out of my own pocket. I bought 150 bubble wrap envelopes dirt cheap, printed 150 stickers with my own address, put those on each envelope, drove to the mail office outside, and dropped off 150 empty envelopes. Next morning, the mailman arrives at my door with a grin on his face. He's a cool guy. And a stash of envelopes, wondering what the heck I am up to. Later that day, I called them to let them know I had reached my target and I would not renew my contract. I signed with a competitor for about the same price per parcel, no strings attached, and did 17,000 parcels in 2 years, which amounts to almost 50,000 euros in business they missed out on me. That was definitely some excellent malicious compliance. The comment down below by Oscar Mendoza has one step better, I think, though. They said, I would have sent 149 empty envelopes to their office with a letter stating, "Here, I've reached the target." This next Reddit post comes from Angel61612. My family owned a couple stores on the beach that sold t-shirts, towels, and bikinis. The bikinis were a big seller, and we decided to mark them down for the week from $39.99 to $24.99. I put a sign up that showed the sale price, and roughly an hour later, a little kid knocked the sign down. Before I could replace it, a big, sweaty, intimidating gentleman comes to me and slams his hands on the counter. "Yo, my girl wants these 2 bikinis, and you're gonna give me a deal or I take my business elsewhere." I was going to tell him about the sale, but once he demanded a deal and tried to intimidate me with his size and slamming on the counter, I decided against it. "I'll give you 2 for $20. Done." Completed the sale, and as the man was leaving, I put the sale sign back up. Our next Reddit post is from SMKAce0921. In 2018, I lived in Southern California while I was finishing up graduate school. Uber was more popular than ever, and given how spread out California is in general, was an easy side hustle to shuttle people back and forth. However, I only did it for a little while because I'm not really the most patient person and eventually got tired of people's nonsense and attitudes. One of the common tactics for customers looking to screw a driver was to cancel their ride in the middle of the trip to avoid paying the fare. They would often say how they did it accidentally, and then ask me if I could just finish the trip since we were basically there anyway. This happened to me 3 times. The first 2 times, I pulled over and told them to get out of my car, which they complied, albeit they called me several names and threatened to kill me. The 3rd time is the subject of this post. It was about 4:30 in the afternoon on a Tuesday when I decided to log on and catch some fares. Most people go into the office on Tuesdays and Thursdays and are looking to get rides home between 4 and 5 p.m. to beat the traffic. At this point, I should mention that I was living in San Diego. If you know the area, you'd know that many people work in the city and live in the outer areas. Chula Vista, Imperial Beach, Escondido, Pacific Beach, etc., because it's cheaper. The day of the event, oh yes, it was an event, lol. I picked up a middle-aged girl who was a student at the local community college downtown. Although she was in community college, I could tell she had money by the way she dressed and where she was going. La Jolla. She gets in my car and starts to make conversation with me. I am driving through town, and as I am, I get on the highway and I hear the cancellation ding. I pull over to a parking lot and let her know that she canceled the ride and I could not drive her until she rebooked. She gave me the "it was an accident" excuse. I told her not a problem and to just rebook the route. Well, at this point, all those people I told you about earlier had just got off of work and were in what I call the power hour of maximum surge pricing. La Jolla is like 25 to 40 minutes from downtown San Diego, depending on traffic. I looked and the trip would have cost her $70. She told me that she wasn't going to pay that. I said fine and asked that she exit my vehicle. She refused and told me to take her home like I was her chauffeur. At this point, I was ticked and wouldn't have done it even if she gave me $100 cash. I didn't really need the money. I asked her politely again. She refused. I had never really gotten to this point before. The other two people were guys, and I would have had no qualms about yanking their butts out by force and beating them in the middle of the highway. However, that wouldn't have been a good look in this situation. I thought about going to the police, given we were 3 blocks from the headquarters, but I wanted her to feel the burn. Cue malicious compliance. I asked her if she wanted a free ride. She suddenly perked up and said, "I knew you'd come around. You're such a nice guy." I said, "Buckle up," and we got on Interstate 5. Here's the part where I tell you that San Diego is 16 miles from the Mexican border. I also keep my passport in my glove compartment because I did volunteer work in Rosarito every so often. We were about 4 minutes into the ride when she asked where we were going. I turned around and told her, "I'm going to Tijuana, and I'm glad you could join me. I hope you brought your passport." At first she didn't think I was serious, but by exit 4 she started to panic. I told her she was welcome to get out at any time, but she needed to make a decision soon because after we passed exit 1, there was no turning back. I also told her that I wasn't taking her back. Well, she got the message and pleaded for me to pull over. I pulled over and dropped her off at an outlet mall at the border. Just for laughs, I checked the Uber rate from the mall to La Jolla, and the cheapest rate was $87 for a pool ride. I didn't make any money that night, but that was the richest experience I've had while being a rideshare driver. I stopped about 1 month later and sold my car. Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing that you could cancel your Uber drive right in the middle of it. That is the worst, and I think she got her just desserts. Excellent job, OP. Our next Reddit post is from Tina Webmom. I'm a nurse. I work in nursing homes, such as rehabs, old folks' homes, etc. I do the paperwork that is sent to Medicare. That paperwork has to be submitted in a timely manner, or the facility goes from $700 a day to $200 a day. Just tossing numbers out, don't remember the exact amount. This is important in a second. I worked for a facility that I loved. The people were wonderful. It was like a huge family. The staff ate their meals with patience, the independent people visited often, and our bosses were easy to approach. Then the bosses retired. At the same time. Our board then decided that maybe we would make more money if we hired a management company. All of these changes happened within weeks of each other. They hired a traveling nurse to head up the skilled nursing unit for a year. We didn't react well to her. She never smiled, she would just look at you if you asked a question, and she decided the new rules, that didn't apply to her, were needed. Shortly after hiring her, she began firing everybody. It was like a war zone had erupted on the floor. Nobody smiled, no laughter, no visitors, no family meals, and loads of stress. I was the last one fired. Oh, I had been written up, 0 write-ups when she walked in, for things like cell phone on the floor, which was in my pocket, drink on my desk in my office, water, and filing a certification form late. Doctor signed it the day it was due, but then photocopied it before I had left for the doctor's office. So they had their 3 write-ups. At 2 o'clock on Friday, the administrator calls me into his office. I'm informed that I've been terminated. I'm floored. I work my butt off. I'm actually great at my job. I've been there 7 years. I'm escorted to my office to gather my stuff. They have turned off my computer, asked for my passwords, and escorted me from the building. Here's where the malicious compliance comes in. They called me in to fire me just as I was creating the packet to send to Medicare. I was never able to send it. They asked if things were situated since it was a Friday. I volunteered no information. Remember that timely manner? Well, that Friday was the very last day to submit about 30 different forms. Most were 14-day assessments that literally covered 14 days. Billing called and let me know that the default cost over $100,000 by the time they figured everything out. Our next Reddit post is from Poshbo. I work for a leisure company. Think soft play, indoor soccer, laser tag. Can't be specific. Prior to lockdown, managers and the big bosses were negotiating the renewal of the lease on one of our parks. Things were going mostly smoothly, however, the landlords were difficult to contact. Then the 2020s hit the fan. All of our sites were closed, and everything was thrown into a mess. Negotiations began to slip down the priority list. Nobody thought the landlord would push an eviction for an expired lease during this period, especially with it still getting rent, despite the site closures, and the closure of every business and restaurant in the immediate area. We were wrong. A few days ago, we received a letter saying we had 7 days to leave the premises and take everything with us. We were reminded that anything left in the building after 7 days will become the landlord's property. That line is very important. Now, a lot of construction goes into installing our equipment into a new building, which makes emptying one even harder. Add a lockdown with no staff and most businesses shut, it meant that saving much of our assets would prove to be extremely difficult. To lose a profitable site and all of its assets is definitely a blow to our company. But here is where it gets worse. A few days into our 7-day eviction, we find out that the landlord has been advertising our park to competitors. But he isn't offering just the building, he is offering all of our stuff pre-installed. Ready to go, just needs rebranding. The landlord has evicted us from the property in an attempt to increase rent and make a solid profit from our equipment installed because he thinks we won't be able to empty the park. We were furious. And here's where the malicious compliance came in. We were told we had 7 days to move everything we owned out of the property. So that's what we did. Local businesses from all around offered up free space to store our things. A few people came back out of lockdown, and they all spent the rest of the week removing, selling, or destroying everything that was related to us. We didn't even leave light fittings. In every other site vacation we had seen, we always ended up leaving thousands of dollars worth of disco lights in the ceilings because they're too hard to get. We leave most of the construction in, as well as things like bars and kitchens that all stay intact, recognizable as they once were. But not this building. We ripped up the flooring we installed, tore down the walls that were not part of the original structure, wooden walls to divide up the space, ripped apart our manager's offices, and removed all artwork and lockers. The landlord now has every new deal he has been making dead in the water, a large renovation bill to install new floorings, etc., or a company willing to do it themselves, like we were. Lockdown has been extended another 4 weeks, so he has at least another 4 weeks without rent. We were paying, and won't have any potential buyers. The silver lining, the assets we got out of the site, fridges, TVs, equipment, food, tables, etc., have all been sold, and the lack of rent and additional income has helped the business and paid staff wages. Oh my goodness, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. If he had just left you guys alone, he would have been receiving rent this whole time, and you would have gotten all the stuff you left behind. But man, by trying to pull a fast one on you, he ended up just wrecking himself. Oh my goodness. That was r/MaliciousCompliance. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe as I'm trying to grow my channel. If you have any suggestions on which subreddit you'd like to hear next, let me know in the comments.